Hello and welcome to the old garage number 40. I'm Wild Bill. Gosh, a lot of zeros as of late. Had episode 100, special number 30, now we got garage number 40. But anywho, we've got some questions. We've got some musical silliness this time and a shout out. And the questions, well, I'll tell you what, on the community page I've been for the last couple of months putting up a daily quiz, just a little vintage car history question, and you pick it up. And I'm starting to actually get people ask questions from that too. So this first one is from Stephen Rickstrew, and he asks, all this flooding in New England begs two questions. Who made the first amphibious car? And is it time to bring back the DUK, or the DUKW from World War II? It kept many an amphibious operation from turning into a complete disaster, Anzio especially. Okay, well, I'll let you know now we're way past the time period that my channel covers. The first actual production amphibious car was the Amphicar. This was in Germany in the early 1960s. And there's a reason why it took that long, because, it's just like any recreational dual-purpose road vehicle. If you bought a dune buggy sand rail and you got it street legal, well, yeah, you can drive it on the street, it's legal, but it's not really a good car to be driving, and frankly, because of what you had to do to it to make it street legal, it's no longer as good on the dunes either. You've lost too much in the translation, and that's true with a car. You're either going to have a car that floats, or you're going to have a boat that drives, but it won't do either one well. And this is why, the whole idea of an amphibious car, as just a personal recreational vehicle, because it has no real practical use, except in extremely rare situations. That was the first one. And as far as the DUK goes, well, you have to remember that this was a vehicle that was built for a specific purpose during war. It was not a car. This was, a personnel transport, amphibious personal transport vehicle, and cargo transport for that matter too. And after World War II, I know that a lot of these wound up in the private sector and became commercial vehicles, mostly in the tourist trade. And which is great, and if some company wants to build a vehicle, a modern one, for that purpose, I could see that, maybe. But, is it really practicable? It would be a tourist thing, in my opinion, again, but like I said, this is just my opinion, because we're well beyond the historical facts here. Nobody tried, not even in World War I did anybody try to make an actual amphibious car. About the closest thing would be around 1908, when at least there was an attempt to make a car that had like contraptions on the side of it, so that if you were in front of a river, a stream or something, you could maybe ford it take the fenders off and fold them out and turn it into a bridge. That was tried. But that's about as far as you get. So, anywho, there we go. All right, y'all know I'm old school. Okay, next question I have is from Michael AMVM. And the question is, I think this came from the Grand Prix special. It says, what's more impressive, the 18-liter engines from 1906? Or the modern 1.6 turbo compound hybrids with 50+% efficiency? Okay, well, which one's more impressive in my opinion? Well, this is called vintage car history, not modern Grand Prix, so you already know which one's going to win. But nonetheless, this is actually an interesting question, because you really are comparing apples to apples. When you look at those, Grand Prix and record-breaking engines that were put into the cars of 1906 and in that era, these were purpose-built for that. They were not ever put into actual production. they were using the absolute most cutting edge technology that was available at the time, and boy did they accomplish a lot. But as I just said, they did not put these engines as they were in cars. Their derivatives would wind up in production cars. Okay, what they learned by building these monstrous, engines, that technology allowed them to do, is what led to the smaller, more efficient, and stronger engines of a few years later that would come out. And this is true in those Grand Prix 1.6 liter, screaming horsepower monsters of today. They're using state-of-the-art, cutting-edge technology. You're not going to find one of those engines, as it sits in a car at the Grand Prix, sitting in a Prius. Okay, it's their derivatives, and it's what companies learn from building these engines on the racetrack, and then is applied, to the, to the road. Because it doesn't really matter either engine. Okay, it's a 1906, it's a 2023. Okay. There may be 100 and almost 120 years of technology between them, but they're both made for the same thing. You could not take a Grand Prix race car of 1906 and say, okay, this is my daily driver. No, it will blow up. It will melt. You can't do that. These are built specifically to race, and that's what they're going to do. You put that thing in stop, go, okay, 12 miles, oh, speed limits, oh, limit, and you do that with a 1906 Grand Prix, or you're just the car's just going to melt. You can't do that, okay? You have to drive it to race. And the same is true in the 2023 car. I mean, try grabbing a Grand Prix car, okay, modern Grand Prix car, put it in your driveway and say, okay, this is going to be my daily commuter. I mean, good luck. No, the car will melt. It's just not designed to do it. So yeah, they are actually both, it's apples and apples. It's the same engines. They're both incredibly impressive. They both are. I'm more impressed by what they were able to do and pull out of those 18 liter, but those big, huge engines, at that time. That's impressive to me. So yeah, they win in my book, but they're both awesome. Okay, next one. Let's see. We had more than usually. I got 2 or 3. I got a little more now. Okay, here's a question. This came from Bruno Waters, and says question: the petrol engine of my PHEV seems to be capable to operate in Atkinson cycle mode. Do you know of any classic cars with Atkinson cycle engines? No. Okay, next question is, okay, no, I'm not going to do that too. The Atkinson cycle engine, I think that dates to 1882, and it was used primarily at that time as a stationary engine. It is a 4-stroke engine, but what it essentially does is during the the power stroke and the exhaust stroke, you've got full stroke. So it's just, piston's just grabbing all the power it can. But through a series of pinions and levers and fulcrums, during the next 2 strokes of the 4-stroke, during the intake and compression, the energy that is needed to really make that happen that's been produced is far more than is needed. And so that stroke is shortened. It's almost like half of what it is. And then that energy is otherwise put back into the crankshaft to increase the engine's efficiency. Now, this is a great idea, and it really works well if the engine is fairly low RPM. We're talking, keep it under 2,000 RPM. Better off closer to about 1,200 RPM, and it's under constant load, because this is not because the engine. I mean, it's a very efficient, very solid producing engine, and it can make good power, but it has a horrible torque curve. Okay, if you try to make this engine speed up, slow down, heavy load, light load, heavy load, light load, you're going to tear it apart. It just can't do it. It needs to have a constant load, really, and a constant revving speed to be efficient, or at least it's got a very narrow bandwidth. Which is why they were really, other than a couple of artisan one-off cars, they were never used in cars up until computer technology was able to mate with an Atkinson's type engine in such a way that electric motors would be able to balance the actual load on the car so that the engine could just do something at a constant rate and the motors take care of all of the imbalances. So no, they weren't used in the vintage era. I don't think before 1990 they were, or the 1990s they were used. They're just, there had to be a lot of technology to be developed in order to make an Atkinson style engine really work with a car. So, okay. Next one we have James McCarthy question. I mean, come on, it's the old garage. Of course there's James McCarthy questions. And this was about the episode 100, As Long as It's Black. And his question is, did the production quality increase with the assembly line? And, you know, initially the answer is yes, it did. What happened in the process of producing the assembly line itself? I mean, like in the factory, and they're like constructing it and designing it and everything else. At the same time, they're looking at, okay, since we're saving time here, where can we put time to make, you know, that will, that will make sense? And that was in manufacturing the assembly parts. A lot of work went into that so that when the people were there to assemble, the parts were identical. I mean, you know, thank you, Henry Leland, and Ransom Olds as well. They both were pioneers there, and Henry Ford learned from them. But also the quality increased because of the increase in the skill in the labor force. They were all now doing specific jobs that were, you know, they knew exactly how to do it. And rather than overwork your staff, you know, to make the job so tedious that you just start becoming careless because you literally stop caring. You know, you had the 8-hour work day, you had breaks during the day, you had a lunch hour, you only worked 5 days a week, and you know, and it was a very different work environment, and so he was able to keep his workforce fresh and therefore light on their toes, quick on the job, and the efficiency and quality did in fact go up. Now, did it stay that way? Well, as the whole principles of the assembly line grew across the planet over the next decades or so, I mean, yeah, things, you know, fluctuated from there. But yeah, initially it absolutely did have a notable increase in the fit quality of the automobile. So yeah, it did. Okay, and we have one more question here. And again, James MacArthur. And this was regarding when Jay from What It's Like came over. And he was, you saw, I mean, we filmed together at the museum. I put that up a couple of weeks ago. And then we sat here and we just talked car nonsense for almost an hour. I edited it down. But the question is regarding the Canton Classic Auto Museum. Does the museum normally allow visitors to sit in their cars? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes it depends on the situation, because I mean, this is a significant museum, and they are often doing events, you know, community events throughout the city and near, you know, in various communities, and they'll bring cars out of the museum, and yes, they'll you know, hey, you want to sit inside this car? Sure, and they'll let little kids come on in the car. On the actual museum or in the museum itself, you know, on the displays, not typically. If you ask, okay, but you just have to. I mean, they're not set up that way. You know, just to walk into them. You know, but if you want to, I mean, if you ask them, I mean, I don't see why you'd say no. But it's not typical. You know, if you've got 3-year-olds that want to crawl all over them, I mean, they have cars that they take to those events specifically because they know that you're not going to hurt them. So no, they don't typically do it, you know, but, you know, with permission, yeah, you can do it. I mean, we did it, but we're not 3-year-olds. I hope not. Okay, and next question. Okay, that's the questions. Okay, silliness. All right, we're going to do musical silliness today. I've done that before. And it's going to be an education about this. This is called a harmonica. This particular harmonica is a Hohner C280 full chromatic. This is a concert harmonica. This is not one that you would use, for playing blues or jazz or something like that. Those are called diatonics, and they're keyed, specifically. And this is not. This is a chromatic. Now, a diatonic harmonica doesn't have a full scale. It goes. That's it. That's the scale on a diatonic harmonica. This one, this has all of them. I just can't play them all at once. Now, why did I pull this thing out? Well, thing is that it was 3 years ago, literally August of 2020, when I decided I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and it came very close to being a harmonica channel, and specifically pretty much a tribute to the harmonica cats. And one of the things that back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, they did is they would take a piece of classical music and they would rearrange it so that you could tell what it was, but it was for harmonicas. And they had, a band and suit judge. But I don't have a band, I've just got one. I've had this thing for almost 40 years. And so what I was going to do was I was going to take different classical pieces and write arrangements for harmonica, and play, first part, and then you record that, and then play the next part, and then record that, play the next part, record that, until I had the whole thing done, and then put that together as a video with, however I would end up doing it. It lost, not because I couldn't, play the stuff, but just because it's too much time. I mean, the amount of time it would take, I wouldn't be able to do it weekly. It would be more like a monthly, maybe month and halfly, and so I didn't do it. But I'm going to go ahead and give you one. This is, by the way, in the key of C. This is one of the pieces, actually, that I was going to do, and actually I tested, for the channel. This is from Dvorak's New World Symphony, his 9th Symphony in E minor. This is the Largo, the second movement. There is a beautiful melody in there, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do that, and fill in all the parts. So here's part one of that. Here's an excerpt of it. Sorry, I'm just picking it up cold. So yeah, this could have been that channel. So, but instead we have cars. And speaking of cars and engines and stuff, I've got a really cool shout out. Now, this channel, I found these guys actually a few months ago. I don't even think they know that I'm doing this. But it's called Tractors and Engines, and it is really cool. They get into, there's old Merlin aircraft, there's old, of course, tractors, a lot of engines. You got Fairbanks Morses, some old hit and misses. You got some modern engines too. I think they, not that long ago, posted a video about, they scrapped a motorcycle engine or something like that. But, tractors and engines, if you like seeing these old machines working and running and getting close to them, great channel to check out. Link in the description here, like and subscribe, you know the routine. So that's what we have for the old garage today, and I will see you next time. Peace.